Hello, and thank you for tuning in to the Stuff I Heard podcast. I'm your host, Joshua Peak, and this happens to be episode 315. We are cranking it up here, going through the motions and all that fun jazz, as you say. Um, I have been consuming content, even though I haven't done much of a podcast about it. I have been trying to watch and finish some things before I talk about it. So, first off, let's just kick it off right off the bat. I watched a thing on Disney Plus called Luca, which is a really cute little movie. It's a Pixar movie, and Pixar sort of has a history of making these shows where it's always showing in Monsters Inc. It's like, what if monsters had feelings? And then in Toy Story, it's like, what if toys had feelings? And then inside of me, or inside was it inside of me? I don't know, one of those. What if feelings had feelings? And then you get all the way to, you know, everything that they approach is what if this had feeling? Cars. What if cars had feelings? So we keep going through that progression. And this is a new Pixar movie, and it sort of shows some sea monsters. And it focuses on an area where it's, I don't know exactly if it's supposed to be Italian or Greek or French. I think it's Italian. And these sea creatures are living near a coastal sea town where they fish all the time. And once in a while, they see a sea monster. Well, these sea monsters are just, cute and nice and just happen to look like sea monsters. And one day, one of the boys makes his way out of the water and he grows legs. Like immediately, he can walk on land and doesn't know how to walk, but he has to learn how to walk. And he interacts with another boy, and it turns into a whole cute little story about how they're interacting with people in the town and the things they want to do and their dreams and hopes and desires and how their family loves them and they're trying to protect them. At the same time, they sort of, create a bond with this town that they didn't realize they had all along. I guess you see that more from the boy's point of view, but you also see it with his parents. It's a cute little movie. I really enjoyed it. So that was kind of neat. Got to watch that with my grandson. And then we kick it right into watching this show called Solos. Now, Solos, I can picture this being done. This is on Amazon Prime. I can picture this being done during the pandemic and during the time where people are going, okay, I want to create content, but we got to socially distance. And does anyone have any ideas? And each one of these shows on Solos could be its own like one person play. Although there is like in one of the episodes, this woman is talking to a box that talks back to her. And in another episode, there's an actual guy that's there that interacts with the main character. So it's not exactly a solo. But anyway, the point is that you have limited people and you have good ideas and you go, okay, let's do this as a show. Now, this has got top level people in it. I mean, the first episode is Anne Hathaway talking to a future self and a previous self in this device that she's made to talk to the future because her hope is to go to the future. And it's a very interesting story that they've told. Helen Mirren is in one. I think I've talked about this before. I watched the last of them just the other day. I think it was just yesterday. With I got up super early to smoke a chuck roast to make poor man's burnt ends, and this got the woman who plays Crazy Eyes on Orange Is the New Black. She had a solo, and it was really impressive. Her energy and range of emotion that she can put out is nothing short of impressive. I mean, it is amazing. I watched an episode with Morgan Freeman. That was the final one. He sort of is the narrator along the way. There's an episode where a woman has a baby and like she turns her back and turns around. The kid's like 2, and then she turns back and turns back around and to do something else, and he's growing like in exponential fashion. And it's not necessarily a solo because there's this kid that grows super fast, and it's terrifying how fast he grows. But it's more about her. It's more about her acting and her ability to capture you on screen. There's a really interesting one with a woman who you realize that she's wearing these fairy wings, and she's talking about her neighbor that she's in love with, and that he's got a cute kid, and she ends up falling for the kid and being best buddies with the kid, and it's very weird. They're all like futuristic. That whole idea of like Black Mirror just around the corner, these things could happen. It's all tapped into stuff like that of, you know, this is just the next thing that's going to happen. And here's sort of a weird dystopian look at it as how it would affect people on a smaller basis. And when you're watching the show, you realize that some of these people's storylines are tied in together. And I'm sure that somewhere there's a someone's done the work and been like, oh yeah, because this person was this person's mother, and this person was that person's brother, and this is their story of how this happened. And you know, I don't know how it all ties together. I just know that there's moments where they talk about things that are in other episodes. And in one particular instance, somebody is somebody else's kid. And I was like, whoa, whoa, whoa. Did I miss something? Is there another story here that is layered into these solos? Um, Even Morgan Freeman taps into uh, different memories of, and he lists off all sorts of things that has to do with each one of the episodes. And so maybe I wonder if it's supposed to be that each episode is one of his memories. And it's not necessarily his memories, which is kind of interesting. You'll see what I mean. If you watch it, it's really good. It's if you cry easily, have a box of tissues, because it will make you cry. And yeah, it's very good. So moving on from that, I watched a really great movie called The Tomorrow War. It came out on Amazon Prime, I think about a week ago, but I just have finally gotten around to watching it. Chris Pratt is a guy, like you see it in the previews. He looks like he's a dad, and him and his family are watching some big soccer event, and then this big purple cloud appears on the field, and these soldiers walk out, and they announce that they're from 30 years in the future, and that they're in a war with an alien species that is eating them, and they are losing, and they need help. So just imagine if, like, you know, people talk about it, America was founded by people who found it so bad in their country that they were like, I got to get out of here. Many people who migrated here were just like, we got to get out of here. We got to escape. We got to get on this boat and just hope that it doesn't fall off the earth. And that's back when they thought that the earth was flat or had hard edges. But this is a very interesting story in the fact that you look at what's going on supposedly in the future, and they go, we have to go back 30 years because of this thing that we created to travel through time that can only be done this way. And from there, maybe we can have some hope to survive as a people. Crazy concept, right? So here's my here's my take from it. Okay. The aliens that they're in this are some of the most terrifying aliens I've ever seen in any movie whatsoever. If you scare easily, don't watch this movie. If you're like, I can handle anything, okay, be prepared. These things are sort of like the velociraptors that you see in Jurassic World. They're like super fast and super aggressive and super smart and communicating with each other through, kind of thing. They have the mouth of the predator, that their mouth opens in like super wide, crazy ways. They're very, very hard to kill. Uh, very hard to kill. And they also have tentacles that can shoot these spear things from them at times. I mean, it is terrifying. And these things are fast too. And if they catch you, they just eat you. Like it's, it's one of those things when you see it, you're like, So, um, there is a great appearance by J.K. Simmons in it. I did not know he was in such good shape. He is ripped in this. I don't know if I don't know if he got beefed up for this or he got beefed up for another role, but he looks like he is probably in the prime of his life right now. For those of you who don't know, he's playing in the Spider-Man movies. He's he's Peter Parker's boss. Give me pictures of Spider-Man. That guy. I forget his name. But anywho, Really great movie, really interesting storyline. There is a timeline problem with the show in that there's elements of time travel and paradox events that could be wrong, because one thing can't happen because the other thing happened, sort of deal. You can't figure a thing out and go back and change it and have an effect on the thing that happened in the future, because then it would have been changed anyway and you wouldn't have even been there to do the thing. So there is a paradoxical problem with the time travel element of the show, but so the show is still interesting and fun. And just if you watch it, just hang on, and it's wild. It's like 2 hours and 20 minutes or 2 hours and 30 minutes. It's a long movie too, but a lot happens. So one of the things that I got from this movie was, number one, Amazon has money and they are investing in their own content. I mean, they're not just making content with whoever they can get. They're just like, hey, let's go after the top actors in the world. I know that coming up, there's a movie coming out with The Rock and Ryan Reynolds and Gal Gadot, where they're supposed to be like international thieves. But I mean, you're talking about some of the top actors in the world. Again, some of the best working right now, the top blockbuster people, and you're making content for your Amazon Prime platform. So if you're like, hey, you got a subscription, you can watch it for free. Pretty cool idea. So go check out Tomorrow War, the Tomorrow War. Then let's see. I watched the latest episode of The Bad Batch, which came out Friday. I watched it Friday evening. It's very good. There is, maybe not Friday evening, maybe it's Saturday. Anyway, there is, in this episode, we get to meet a character that we met in Rebels. In Rebels, see, Treadaway and I had this idea that when the Bad Batch started, we got to meet Caleb Dune. And we thought it was Dune, D-U-N-E, and that maybe him and Cara Dune were like related. And then I read online it was Doom, D-U-M-E. And that may be wrong. That may be something somebody typoed. I don't know. But he is the Jedi that's in the Rebel show. He's the one that trains Ezra Pritchard. He's the one that becomes his sensei, his Jedi master, and a big time hero later on. So this episode we get to meet Caleb's woman, Twi'lek, or they pronounce it Twi'lek. Her name is Hera, and she's a young lady. She's a young lady. I said lady. She's an alien. She's got the tentacles, like Twi'leks have. Anyway, we get to meet her and Chopper much earlier than Rebels happens. So you get to see an evolution of how the Bad Batch molds into other shows and in the timeline and where it falls in. And not that you didn't know because of Order 66 happening, but this is one of those things where you go, oh, this is why Twi'lek joins the Rebel Alliance. This is why she ends up fighting the Empire. This is why ultimately this is going to be some tie-in to where she gets to meet Caleb. And Ahsoka somehow is tied in here too, because she's going to be part of this. She's going to be some sort of connection because of watching Rebels. I know that she has a connection to Ezra Pritchard, and they have that moment inside of time where I can't give it away. You got to watch it. But good episode. Not so much about the Bad Batch, although we do get to see Crosshair. We thought that he was going to be seriously scarred and thus turned away by the Empire as useless. But that was not the case. He was instead wearing all black stormtrooper armor as the Death Troopers. That's how they were looking in the show. He took his helmet off at a certain point. I didn't see any crazy scarring. He still got the little crosshair, line thing on his face from before. But other than that, like, he got burned by that rocket, and I didn't see any scarring on his face whatsoever. So maybe they magically healed him. Like, oh no, that's not really part of the story. We're moving forward. Maybe he got like tertiary burns or whatever. Maybe that's why he's wearing the suit. Maybe the suit's helping him be mobile and stuff. I don't know. I'm sure they'll probably address it at some point, or they'll just move on and be like, no, that wasn't an issue. Let's move on. I also watched the latest episode of Loki. Came out Wednesday. Loki I want to say this is episode 5, is crazier and crazier every episode. So in Loki episode 5, this is spoilers if you haven't seen it. He is in this void, supposedly at the end of time, is how they describe it, at the end of time. And being in this end of time area, at the end of episode 4, like I said, we got to watch him wake up, and he's greeted by 3 people that kind of look like him or has something to do with him. One of them looks like a classic Loki with the old man with the crazy horns and the super green and yellow suit, spandex, and then one's like young Loki. And then we saw a black dude that I thought might have been like a black version of Thor. Wasn't really sure who he was. We learn, opening up in episode 5, that they're all Lokis. Not only are they Lokis, but there's an alligator Loki. And they all are running from this giant, what looks like a monster cloud thing that basically just swoops down from the sky. The whole sky comes down in this great purple cloud and just consumes things. I mean, just annihilates whatever's there. And they all explain that this thing's called Eliath, and that Eliath devours whatever is sent here. And he's asking them all kind of questions, and they're like, keep moving, we got to keep moving. We can't let Eliath catch us. And they say, how are you guys still here? Like, if Eliath is eating everything, and they all sort of said, well, the one thing that's really hard to kill is a Loki. So maybe that's Loki's secret power that nobody seems to really talk about, is that Lokis are really hard to kill, which he is. So as he's running and as he gets into this underground layer, there's moments where he travels in the ground, and they show the camera moving through the dirt, and you get to see things like Thor's hammer in the dirt. There's a moment where you see Thor as a frog inside of a jar, and there's references to different comic books, and there is lots and lots and lots of Easter eggs in this episode that people who are way smarter than I am and way more into this than I am have gone into great lengths and detail to tell you about all of the crazy hidden gems that they found along the way. And it is bonkers. I mean, I knew this show from the previews was going to be so crazy and so good, and it is. It is amazing. The 3 Lokis and our Loki that we're watching, that we are now calling the variant, they're all discussing what they can do next. And Loki, the one we know, is like, we need to kill that thing. And they're like, what do you mean? It's like, well, if it can eat, then it can breathe, and if it can breathe, it can die. And we got to figure out a way to kill it. And they're like, that's crazy. Like, there's no way. And so he's just bound and determined he's going to kill it. Well, meanwhile, back in the area he left, Sylvie is trying to figure out who is in charge of the TVA now that she knows that these 3 timekeepers aren't really real. They're androids. She's like, what's really going on here? And so she works with Ravenclaw a little bit, Ramona, and she's trying to figure out what's going on. And Ramona wants to know too, but also Ramona wants to capture her and delete her, or prune her, they call it. And they prune her with these little magic stick things that have like a glowing end on it. And Sylvie at a certain point realizes, I mean, the only way I can figure out what's going on is if I prune myself. Because she's like, there's something out here. They use that little dancing clock cartoon thing to ask it questions. It's sort of like a walking, talking Google. And the thing sort of tells them that there's this element at the end of time is where everything goes. So she prunes herself and wakes up in this land. And who's there but Mobius to save her? He pulls up in this crazy looking car with a pizza delivery doohickey on top of it. And he's like, get in. And she gets in and gets to escape Eliath. Well, in the meanwhile, while she's running from Eliath, she happens to touch part of the purple cloud, and she has that ability to enchant. So she enchants the thing a little bit, and she realizes, oh, this thing is living. Like, this thing is supposed to be all powerful and all terrifying, but also I tapped into something, and I think I can enchant this thing. So they're running away. Meanwhile, we go back to regular Loki, and he goes to run out of the cave to go attack Eliath himself, or figure out a way to attack Eliath himself. And then meanwhile, he runs across a multitude of different Lokis of every kind of imaginable look and shape and size and variant. And you're like, whoa, how many Lokis are there? And I didn't count them. Like, I'm sure somebody probably counted them. Like, oh, and right there's actually 57. If you count the alligator, you know what I mean? Like, somebody's going to do that. They're going to be like, I counted all of them. There's only 30, but whatever. There's a bunch of them. Okay, so they all have a meeting. They all talk about it, and they all realize that they all want to be in charge. They all want to, you know, be the king of the Lokis or whatever they want to call it. And there's one that looks just like him, who's arguing his point about how he should be in charge, and then they all turn on him. And then another one steps up and says, actually, I'm the one in charge. And they all turn on him. And then at a certain point, the evil Loki says something again, and alligator Loki bites his hand off. I mean, in a in a crazy series where you're like, why is there an alligator Loki? You watch him bite his hand off, you're like, oh, that was why. Okay. that's actually kind of funny. So yeah, alligator Loki for the win there. But our Loki gets away, and when he goes outside, he's running, and he convinces old Loki, old classic Loki, and young Loki to work with him. And he's like, hey, it's sort of like a past, future, present kind of deal. He's like, hey, let's, help me figure this out. And young Loki tells him, he says, I can tell you where Eliath is going to be. And then maybe if he's busy, you can attack him from behind. Maybe you can get him from behind. And so he can tell when these things are going to drop from the past into this location. And it seems like a great plan until you watch this giant battleship drop with a ton of people on it, and they all start fighting this thing. And within seconds, this purple cloud just goes and it's gone. I mean, it's just like, what? So it's like, okay, well, that's not going to work. And then suddenly they hear the horn beeping, and it's Mobius and Sylvie, and they come rushing up. And Loki is like smitten with Sylvie, but also he's inspired by the fact that she is overly confident that she can figure this out. And I think part of him is ego wanting to say that he's the better Loki, but I think part of him is being honest and thinking maybe she's the better Loki, and maybe that's what I've been looking for my whole life. Maybe all of my conquests of ruling is dumb. He even tells her at a certain point, what are you going to do when this is all over? And she's like, I don't know. And he's like, you want to find out together? She's like, sure. So there's a moment where they decide they're gonna somehow, she convinces them, I can enchant this thing. Trust me, I can do it. I did it earlier. I can do it again. And so they set off on a mission to enchant Eliath. And young Loki gives our Loki a dagger that can then be turned into a flame, which is another comic book reference that is shown all over YouTube. And he sets off on a path to go, what he thinks, kill or enchant Eliath. And she taps into Eliath and is trying to enchant it. Loki's using the fire dagger to sort of distract it, and it's following him for a moment. And then it turns on her, and when it does, Loki's realizing, like, I got to save her. And he runs over and he grabs her hand, and she said, use your power. And he's like, I don't have your power. And she says, I think that we all have each other's powers. We just don't realize it yet. So he's trying to use her powers. Meanwhile, classic Loki appears in his crazy spandex outfit with the giant horns, and he manifests a city, sort of like Wanda does in WandaVision. He manifests this giant emerald city behind him that is just enormous. Imagine creating the Wizard of Oz area, times 1,000. He just, out of magic, creates this city. And it's so impressive to watch. I mean, whatever budget they had on imagery and visual effects, they spent all of it on this episode. This was a really impressive episode. And because Eliath senses this giant force of energy and this giant force of matter, it thinks, oh, it's eating time. So it turns towards it. Meanwhile, Loki and Sylvie are using her power because he figures out somewhere along the way how to do it. And classic Loki gets eaten, and he has a great line where he's laughing the whole way. And it's sort of mentioned in YouTube videos that he finally has glorious purpose. It's very interesting to hear this guy talk whenever he's talking about his life as a Loki in his universe, that he escaped Thanos by projecting himself as something else and then hid in the shadows. And then later on, like he escaped and realized that he was the problem. And he was like, maybe I just need to be alone. And so he went to a planet to live out his years forever. And at a certain point, he tried to come back and have people forgive him. And he was like, all of it was for nothing, though. He's like, he's got like an old man's perspective on this and thinking, yeah, all these things that I thought were important really aren't. So I liked his character a lot. I was kind of sad that he died, but it was cool the way he died. Um, but also like his sacrifice, his glorious purpose was what then allowed Loki and Sylvie to enchant this thing and basically kill it. I mean, it disappeared. It what happened is like it opened up in the middle, and you can see like another something, some type of structure, some type of palace or something on the other side, and it's almost like another portal they're going to walk through to something else. Now, I don't know how many episodes this is. Like I said, this is episode 5. I saw somebody hinting that they thought that Loki was only going to be 6 episodes. If that's the case, then the next one is the finale. That's going to suck. I mean, I hate that it's ending so soon, but also really great show. Really great show. So, did I mention everything on that? I think I did. Yeah, I did. Okay. So then this morning, I had this crazy sleep thing where I got up super early yesterday to cook poor man's burnt ends, and then we went to a friend's house to have a pool party and eat and have fun and play cornhole and all that fun stuff. And then when I got home, I was really tired, and I thought, I'm just going to lay down. I took a shower and I laid down and I went to sleep. And my wife got me up like 4 hours later. She was like, "You're going to sleep all night? Because you went to bed at like, I don't know, 7-ish, 7:30, 8, something like that. Kind of early, ain't it?" And she was right. But also they needed help with the fire stick. We were watching the UFC 264, Conor McGregor and Justin Poirier. And this was their, I guess, third match that they were fighting each other. I watched the second time where Poirier beat McGregor's tail. He kicked his leg and kicked his leg and kicked his leg until McGregor couldn't even use his legs, and then he just got his face punched in. But this was their third meeting, and I got to tell you, McGregor looked like he was focused this time. Coming into the ring, he looked like he was ready. He looked like he was gonna stand on his own. But that McGregor's attack style is sort of like Mike Tyson. He comes out of the gate swinging hard, swinging for the fences, and if he don't get you in the first round, you have a better chance. The longer you make him fight you, the better chance you have. And so Poirier knows that, and he did what he had to do in the first round, even though I think he still won the round because he took McGregor down several times. As the round is ending, still in the first round, as the round is ending, McGregor broke his leg. Like they talked a little bit about it when they think he broke his leg, but like he goes to stand up and his right above his ankle, his leg just does the wrong move. And it's like, oh, it's one of those moments you kind of feel like you're going to throw up. It's like, did you see that? Yeah, that was awful. It was awful. It was an awful break. So, yeah, I don't think McGregor is going to ever be at that level again. The level that we saw him at fighting Cowboy Cerrone, or any of these other fights that were just crazy performances by him. I don't think we're going to see him at that level again. I think that what he's done for the sport is more than anybody else has done for the sport. I mean, he's definitely helped them get paid more by being the draw, by being what people want to pay for. He's a great promoter. He's a great trash talker. Whether people like him or not, he is a good fighter. And he gets people excited about the sport, So his leg will heal. I don't know if he'll ever fight again professionally. My hope is that he doesn't. My hope is that he's done. I don't want to see him getting hurt over and over again. This is a pretty bad injury. This is going to take a while to heal from. And I just don't think that he's got that hunger to take that sort of abuse anymore. I mean, I know that a lot of people, they have something within them that's just full of piss and vinegar, and all they want to do is fight all the time. And he may be like that. I mean, he obviously is if he's gone this long, but I don't know. He just, to me, it's time to stop. Like, I hope he has friends close to him that go, "Hey, listen, I love you, and you've done enough. You've made money. You made a name for yourself. You're in the history books. The first champ. You know, 2 division titles. Let's do something else. Let's pivot. Let's do something else." I like the fact that he has more things going on. I like the fact that he's the owner of Proper 12 and the Irish whiskey, and I hope that keeps making him money. I mean, as an ambassador of the sport as he's been, to bring such attention to the sport and to elevate it to what it is now, I hope that he can somehow spin this in a way that helps him be financially secure for the future. I mean, it is one of those moments where you go, if this is it, like I hope you're okay money wise. You know what I mean? So anyway, I got up last night to sort of turn that on and see the fight just in time. I mean, thanks to my wife to get me up to do that. But then, like, suddenly I was like revitalized after watching the fight. I was so excited, and I was like, I think I'm up now. I mean, it's like midnight, but I think I'm up. And I was a little too excited to go to sleep, and I was like, well, maybe I can watch some stuff on TV. So I watched season 4 of Atypical on Netflix. Atypical is about a boy named Sam who has autism, and he is a functioning autistic. There's elements of maybe it's not autism. Maybe it's Asperger's. Anyway, he's on the spectrum somewhere, and he is trying to figure out life, and his family is sort of figuring out life at the same time. And it's a very interesting story because he is very high functioning, and there are moments where he isn't, where he breaks down and says, I can't do this. And to me, the show is not about him overcoming a handicap as much as it is about the world realizing his value and realizing what a good person he is and loving him because of all of it. And in that process, they learn that about themselves too. They learn that they're just as flawed and they have just as many things to work around. And sometimes the things worth fighting for are worth fighting for. And sometimes your hopes and dreams don't work out. And sometimes they do. It's a good show. It's a really good show. Michael Rappaport is in it. Jennifer Jason Leigh is the mom. Rappaport is the dad. There's a great actress in it who plays his sister. Really talented woman. I don't know her name. You're going to see her in more stuff, though. She's a really good actress. So anyway, good show. I watched the whole season between midnight and this morning at about, I think I finished it up at about 5:30ish. And I was like, I am getting sleepy now. Maybe I'll just turn this TV off and go to sleep here on the couch. And I did. It took me a little 3-hour nap on the couch. It was nice. So now I feel like I'm back on normal people's schedule again, and I can interact with folks. And that's why I wanted to get up and do the podcast, because I was like, hey, I got time. Let me do the podcast. So, anywho, I hope everybody's doing well out there. I hope this is still entertaining for some folks. We had a great camping trip last weekend. I don't know if I talked about it, but it was quite the fun thing. We rented an RV. We went down to Lake Murray, and luckily we had a neighbor that allowed us to use his house because, let's face it, the RV's really tiny compared to what we're used to living in. Like our bedroom we had was not necessarily a bedroom as much as it was just 2 bunk beds that you had to kind of sort of dive into. And if you're in the bunk, you can't like the wall or the ceiling, I guess you'd call it, is only like maybe 2 feet from your face. It's a little claustrophobic. Um, luckily, the guy next door, he wasn't home, but they were in contact with each other, and he was like, "Yeah, the neighbor's got the key. You guys use the house. Feel free. Shower and whatever." And I was like, "Ooh, shower. Shower sounds good. Yeah, let's use the shower." So, very nice guy. I'm glad we did the trip. I'm glad everybody had fun. We uh, we had a good time on the pontoon. Lake Murray is a very beautiful lake. If you never have the chance to check it out, try to check it out because it is a gorgeous lake. Um, we had a good time. Everybody was safe. My wife had a little bit of a cold before we went, and unfortunately, the night air and the the lake air probably got her a little bit sicker. So when she came home, she had to go to the doctor and get some antibiotics, and she's doing better now. But you know, it's one of those things where you try to make it work, even though you're not feeling the greatest, and then you don't always come out of the other side the way you hope. So, but it's all good. Everybody's good. So, thank you for listening. Thank you for subscribing. If you haven't already, please remember to click the subscribe button or click the like button. It does help the podcast do well. And I'm hoping this grows and grows and grows, but it doesn't grow without your help. So, as Tim the Tracker says, now it's time to pay the price. Thanks, everybody. Until next time, cue the cow.